Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to be taking our fourth look through my larger format books and annuals, giving them a good clean and generally making them look as good as possible. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Okay then, so we'll start off with this great book on the Batman animated TV series. So I was a huge fan of this animated show. When was it? The early 90s now, wasn't it? And this book here was a bit of a behind the scenes. It covers, I see, a bit of the merchandise as well. And I just loved it. And it's, I think, one of the few books ever to be published about the Batman animated TV series. There is a superb official documentary on the either the Warner Brothers or the DC Comics YouTube channel, which I highly recommend. It's about an hour and 40, interviews all the main cast and players and how it actually became the series, and it's just great. It really is good. I just love the design of it. It's just, superb. Now these books that we're looking at today are all super tall, so they were all together on a bookcase in my room, and this is the fourth one we're going through now. So this first batch that we're looking at are all sort of slightly oversized books, so I think the best plan is to do the top dusting off bit as we go along, and then potentially we'll do the any polishing at the very end. So yes, we've got more Blue Peter. Unfortunately, this is the tail end though. This is the last time we'll see Blue Peter books now, and this one here was actually released for the show's 50th anniversary. There we are. A personal account by Richard Marson. Now Richard Marson actually worked on the show for many years, and he's written a really good Doctor Who book on producer John Nathan Turner as well, which I highly recommend. But this is basically the full history of the show all the way back, and although the more modern series, I stopped watching it in the sort of the mid, just after the mid 80s. It did go running a lot longer than that, but it's good. It's got in the earlier bits, it's got lots of the the signed pictures, for example, for each of the stars. I think these are really good. Yeah, it's got lots and lots of sort of iconic moments really from the show's history. Yeah, it's good stuff. It really is. There we are. Yeah, good book, that one. It's worth tracking down if you can find it, because it's an excellent read. I was actually a bookseller at the time when this one came out. It was actually quite difficult to keep in stock. I believe I asked the publisher's rep about it, and they said it was because the cover was so difficult to produce in that metallic blue, apparently. And then, well, we've got the last batch of annuals. Now, I'm not going to dwell on these because, as far as I know, they're absolutely all mint, and I've really only got them to keep the full collection intact, really. So I don't think there's going to be anything at all wrong with these, but I'll go through and do like a couple at a time, just to say I've checked everything. But yeah, I suppose in a way it's a bit of a shame that you see how tall these books are. It's a bit of a shame that Blue Peter as an entity has now come to an end, because it was almost like a bit of a staple of the BBC, really, wasn't it? And I can't help but feel over the last sort of few years, certainly the last couple of decades, the BBC somehow has just lost its identity a little bit, and I'm not alone in that thought. It really is. It's suffering a bit at the moment, the BBC, and I think the days of charging people a licence fee in the UK to watch content are probably quite numbered, I would think. I've got to say, the books are quite a hefty tome, but I guess they just weren't selling, and the show itself was just losing ratings, and just couldn't keep going. It wasn't viable, But these aren't going to need hardly any work at all, unlike some of the stuff we've got coming up a little bit later. I'm doing that like James Bond there. But just giving the little brush off across the edges here isn't going to hurt one little bit. And we'll just keep them as nice as possible. I said what's really good is that the large format books that we have actually done already are now looking absolutely fantastic on the shelf, because, you know, as I said, some of them I've had for decades and they've never ever been touched. So it's great that they are looking good now. This is 2008. Looks like they've all at some point got a Doctor Who piece inside, haven't they? Trying to keep the connection with Doctor Who going, which was always there sort of historically, wasn't it? But they are massive books. And this one actually has, so we'll remember this, the 2009 one. This has got some wear on the front cover, so it's not like fresh. It almost looks like it's got a sticker mark or something on it. Yeah, it's all right inside, but along the bottom there and around the edges, it's got a little bit of cover. Oh, I don't know what it is. It looks like cover glue or something. So we'll remember that when we. In fact, there's a bit of dust come off this one. So this one's definitely come from a different source. I guess it wasn't bought brand new, but we'll soon be able to sort that little bit there out. 2 more to go, and then in this series we would have seen every single Blue Peter annual or book released. There we are. Now this one has got, from the top of that one, it's got a bit on the back here as well, so we need to remember that when we give this one the dusting. And it would appear that 2011 was the very last annual, which is this one here. This is where it knocked on the head. The end of a legacy, really. 40 years of Blue Peter annuals. Right, that's them done. Now on to something far more interesting. Sherlock Holmes. Now, this particular Sherlock Holmes is the Granada Sherlock Holmes. So these were the ones that starred Jeremy Brett. And boy oh boy, was he a great actor, and perhaps one of the very best actors to ever portray Holmes. I think his depiction was almost definitive, really. Him and Basil Rathbone, they're the two. It's a bit of a toss-up, really. Watching the Basil Rathbone ones these days, they are a little bit, well, they are of their time, they're 80 years old now, the Basil Rathbone films. And they are a little bit dated, not forgetting they came out during the Second World War. So they're a little bit out of place, they're a little bit propagandist. But, he was a great Holmes, Basil Rathbone, but I think Jeremy Brett, for me, takes the crown. And this was such a great series, the Granada Sherlock Holmes series. I just love it to this day. I'm rewatching them and listening to a very, very good companion podcast, which I heartily recommend. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly how easy it would be to get hold of a copy of this. 1986, the television Sherlock Holmes. But that's the one if you like the series. This was the first ever book on it. And it came out whilst it was still being made, of course. They were still making them back then. But they did release one more, which is this one. Which is called Starring Sherlock Holmes. So it's got Brett on that cover and Basil Rathbone on that cover. So my personal 2 favourites on the jackets. Now, who gets the... so this is the way it is. It's got... all the various adaptations and movies that were done over the years, and boy oh boy, wasn't there a lot of them. That's stacks, isn't there? And pastiches as well, of course. So, a lovely, lovely book. Got a bookmark in there as well. So this isn't just the Granada series, of course. It is literally everything that's ever had Holmes on, right back to the early days. There's the Universal Basil Rathbone movies, and then prior to that, we would have the radio shows and that. Great stuff. There we are. Lovely. That's a good book, that one. It was published by Titan Books. Once again, it's long out of print now, but I don't think you'd have too much trouble getting a copy. I wouldn't have thought. Brilliant. So that's them all brushed. I think what we'll do now, I'm going to give them a very gentle polish. Now obviously the Blue Peters aren't going to need much, and I don't think this needs much either. I'm not sure about the other 80s one, but if we do these as we go along, it's probably the way to go. We've got 2 stacks to do today. There we are. I've hopefully given myself a little bit more room to work with now. Now this one, yeah, he's absolutely fine. I think nothing to really worry about on that, because it was one that I bought from brand new. But that may not be the case with this sort of 80s one. So oh, it's not bad. It's certainly not bad copy. Oh, Peter Haining wrote a making of book on every series under the sun, didn't he? that was his thing, really. He certainly did a couple of good Doctor Who ones back in the 80s as well that were excellent. Right, we'll skim through these Blue Peters, except the bad one, which we know all about. But these are just going to have a very much a cursory clean. Now this was the one which had all that dirt along the bottom there, but I don't know if you can see it. I'm hoping you can, because I'm going to spray it on straight on, and we won't have any trouble getting rid of this because it's just like a bit of shot mottling. Could well be there was like a remaindered sticker or a big clearance sticker, and it was like the remains of that, so it's already virtually gone, and that's where the polish can really do its trick. Now, yeah, it's virtually gone. Now, I have a small 3 days away lined up in London next week, which may mean that I may not have time to do a new cleaning video next week, because next week the plan is to do the first of, I reckon, 2 parts of my sort of vintage Doctor Who paperbacks, which are also stored in the office, and I don't think they're particularly dirty, but they are pretty dusty, I think. so they're overdue to be taken down and sort of given the treatment. So that's the next cleaning video that we've got planned. But I said, because I'm away and I've got in the middle of changing roles at work, I've got some training coming up at the start of April, which is going to mean I'm going to be back to full-time work, and I won't quite have enough time to fit everything in. I've done my best to get quite ahead of the game, and I've got videos on the other channel sort of in reserve, all uploaded, edited and ready to go out. So I've got content ready at a time when I've not got any time to actually film any new videos. So I've gone as far ahead as I can with the time that I've had, but it's probably not going to be quite enough. So I think there is a chance that next week I may not be able to do a new video. I'm hoping not, because since I started I've never actually not missed a week, and it would be a shame to have to let real life spoil the party, as it were, because I've been going so well. However, these things take time, and this is not my full-time job or anything, so I have to work around the time that I've got. So, you know, you never know, you might be lucky and see the first lots of Doctor Who videos, Doctor Who cleaning next week. But if not, don't worry, I've not gone anywhere. It's just a temporary gap because of work. But I don't think it's going to impact me more than the 1 week, if it does happen at all, because the training, which was going to be a whole month's worth, is now apparently only 2 weeks, which is good news. So we'll be able to get it done quite a bit quicker. This one, number 31, did actually have a mark at the top there, which we are trying to get off now. Yeah, it came off okay. I don't recognise any of these presenters, unfortunately. There we are. Now let's clean that 50th anniversary book, because this, I said, it's got that really shiny cover. But if you can find a copy of this, it's well worth tracking down. It's great, a really good history of the show, and it looks absolutely stunning. So yeah, 50 years. I mean, it's no small feat, is it, for a TV show to run that long? And as I said, the author, Richard Marston, is really good. So I do recommend this and his Doctor Who book, the one on John Nathan Turner. And then this Batman one seems absolutely fine, to be honest. I don't think, you know, I'll run my little cloth over it just in case there's any fingerprints, but I don't think there is. Right, so that's the first sort of pile there. Now, we have got some Star Trek stuff to do next, some vintage Star Trek annuals and some other bits and pieces. So let me go and grab them now. Right, so we actually have a few graphic novels which I'd forgotten about. So this is one I've had for ages, and it is very much in need of a clean. So I'm hoping we can do a number on this one, because I've had it for a long time. So Jane at War. Yeah, so Jane was like an old comic strip. Yeah, started in 1932, went on until 1959. She was a little risque, but popular with the troops, basically, during the war. Published in the Daily Mirror. And this is the complete Jane. It's probably quite sought after, this one, I would imagine, but I've no real idea. Let's see when it came out. 1976. There we are. That's brilliant, isn't it? But it does appear very, very dusty. So I'm not going to do the edges. I'm literally going to go straight on with the dust, because the duster rather, because there's dust coming off in my hands. So I'm thinking this one must have, over the years, picked up quite a bit of dust, which is not any good. It's a huge book to be in a softback, in all honesty. But what we do, once I've given it this initial dust, there we are, right. top edges. Cool. Quite a bit coming off there. You can sort of see it. Yeah, Jane was like the Force's sweetheart for the actual man, the man at war, you know. There we are. So I think I'll put some more polish directly on, because you see sort of it's almost like yellowed around the edges, and I think if we can give it a bit more of a targeted polish around those bits, it might lighten it up a little bit. Yeah, you can sort of see it's almost like nicotine stains, but it's not. It is, I think, just age related, but because it's softback, it does make it quite tricky to clean. But overall, it's a pretty nice copy of this, actually. It really is. And I suspect it's probably quite expensive if you were to try and track one down. That is my suspicion. Particularly one in nice grade. But that's actually made quite a big difference there. And I haven't really read this since I picked it up, but I remember them being pretty good. A little bit sort of corny, you could say, you know. But yeah, pretty good. Also, that's much better, isn't it? That is vastly improved. As you can see, there's loads in here to read. Excellent stuff. Right, so that's Jane at War. Now, another wartime related one, actually. One of my all-time favourite strips is Charley's War. This is about Charley, and he was a young guy who, at the outbreak of the First World War, lied about his age just to get to the trenches. And amazingly, he manages to make it to the end of the war. It is a fantastic one, and they managed to get the entire strip put into 3 big thick volumes. These are the definitive ones, and if they had a page in colour, they've been reprinted. If there was any cover, if Charley's War was featured on the cover of the comic, then they would actually reprint the covers as well. I think they're terrific, and it's a recommended read, this one. It really is. It's just cracking, really. You know, you obviously recognise the name Pat Mills, one of the co-creators of Judge Dredd. And yeah, Charley's War, what a great comic this was. From back in the day, the 70s. I was actually in London a few years back. I went to the comic book art museum, and they had some original pages. Joe Colloquin, I think is how you pronounce his name. Some of his original artwork was on display, and it was incredible seeing the detail of it up close, you know. There we are. Yeah, lovely. So that one just needed a bit of a cursory clean. I don't think. Yeah, there's no dust on the top of that. Those are much more recent. I mean, I only got these in the last sort of 5 years or so, maybe less than that. Here's volume 2. As I said, there's 3 in the set. There we are. That's one of the battle front jackets. That's where Charley's War first appeared. So there is nothing has been left out. Even adverts advertising the series are in here. So it's really, really recommended. There's an old bookmark in there. Probably the last time I was reading it, so we get a shot of that. Let me just give the covers the cursory one. These reprint volumes from Rebellion are a great way, if you don't want to have the comics physically, because there's so many of them. I mean, I'd love, if I had room, I would keep them all. I just don't have the room. So to have them like this, they do all that, the Judge Dredd in the same format, Strong Chin Dog, all the main sort of 2000 AD characters have had this treatment, but unfortunately they have allowed some of the books to go out of print, which is a shame because, as you can see, they're really nice tomes, you know. And I think nowadays this is the way to enjoy these books, in as close to the original format as you're likely to get, in all honesty. But yeah, Charley's War, very, very good. Highly, highly recommended. I mean, there are bits that are literally shocking, absolutely shocking. So you'll definitely need to track Charley's War down if you've never seen it before. So now on to something completely different. Once again, this is one of those ones that's being shown here today simply because it's massive. It's done by the size, so they're all together on the shelf. V, the TV series V. It's the British Colouring and Activity Book, 1984. Cool, blimey. Well, I can't imagine, if it's in my collection, chances are it's in pretty nice condition. And yeah, this one's never, by the look of it, been used. As we get to the front, is it untouched? It is, although it's got a little £2 in the corner, so that will be coming out. That was a pretty good price, wasn't it? £2 for that. I don't think that was too bad. It's a very, very thin little book here, as you can see, isn't it? 30 pages to it or something. But those sorts of books would be published, and you know, there wasn't a lot for V. Over here we had a V storybook and a V annual, and of course the main bit of merchandise for V was the paperback series, you know, which were big sellers. There was a little bit of merchandise, you know, you had the visitor figure. I think you could buy a visitor gun. But even those were hard to find in the UK. You could get the books okay, but you couldn't get much else. But I remember loving V when it was first released back in the 80s. I think it first got shown over here after or during the 84 Los Angeles Olympics, as I recall. Right, what's next? The Sopranos. What a series this was. And this is one of those making of books. Absolutely love The Sopranos. What a great series that was. And you have to think, if he hadn't have died, James Gandolfini, I reckon it would have been revived by now. But a few of the cast have started to pass away now, just, you know, through old age. It's been quite a while since this series was on. It does look, I started to rewatch it because I watched it at the time, literally as it was being made. Season 1 had been released, and that's when I got into it, and then followed it all literally as it was being made. I was even in and around Jersey in the States when it was being filmed, but I didn't actually see any of the people you know, who I recognised in it. But yeah, it was a great show, and but it does look a little dated now, going back and rewatching it, but nothing to take away from what a great show it was. And that was quite a nice making of book, that one. I remember that. I actually sold that in my shop. Right, now we've got the start of Star Trek. So that's the very first British Star Trek annual. Now these hopefully aren't too bad, but they may just require the odd once over with the polish. But these Star Trek annuals were predominantly gold key comic reprints. And that was the very first one released in the UK. It's got a little mark on the front there. So I'm hoping these aren't too bad. Some of these are my own from when I was a kid. Some of them I bought in the last sort of few years to try and finish the run off. And I have got all the Star Trek annuals now, but it took a bit of tracking down, I tell you. Is that spot going to come off? Because they're not all the same publisher, and there was like one-offs for the motion picture, The Wrath of Khan. There's some television picture books, which we may actually have one of those here to show you, which is different again. So yeah, it's not an easy series to put together, the Star Trek annuals. But I was really pleased when I got the last couple that I was after, because I'd had multiple copies, but they were always hammered. Always hammered, and we don't like that, do we? But yeah, that was the very first one. Not bad, not bad. So here's the, I'd say the more common second annual is this one. Yeah, that's all right. It's just the covers, giving them a bit of a touch up. And I think the actual comics inside are usually of a pretty decent quality. Gold Key weren't amateurs at doing a tie-in, but world distributors who published these annuals in Britain didn't have a lot to refer to, so the likenesses are not the greatest of the characters, but you know, it is what it is. Here we are. Here's one of those TV picture storybook annuals, and these are scarcer than the normal annuals. But I think they did them as TV picture storybooks because they could be sold all year round, whereas annuals seem to be very much for the Christmas market, you know? This one's not perfect by any means, but it's quite expensive. I think it's about £20 this now, if you could find one in sort of half decent condition. It's got a faded spine, but generally it's all right. A slightly better likeness of Kirk and Spock on the front. So yeah, with a bit of luck, I'll be able to get Doctor Who Part 1 done next week, because I think it will end up being a two-part. I don't know, we'll see. I know they're very, very dusty. I'm just not 100% sure what the paperbacks are like inside. So I'm going to try for it for next week, but if not, don't panic. There's loads that I've already filmed for my other channel. We've got some great content over there, so if you're stuck with something to watch, we'll just watch a back video, an older video on my on this channel. I'm sure there's some that you've not seen before, so that one's all right. 72. So again, it's mainly just a little bit of cover gloss and dirt, nothing much more than that. So yeah, it's a bit of a shorter video this week round, but it's only because those Blue Peters didn't really need a lot of work, did they? Or very, very little. So we've got away lightly because it's still 2 boxes full of books this time round. But no worries. That's how it goes sometimes. 73. Slightly come away from the spine there, but not really a great deal we can do about that. But not that these sort of beyond the first ones are worth a lot of money or anything. You'd probably be able to pick them all up for, you know, no more than £5 to £10 for a really, really nice one. you just might need to be patient, because you have to think that this is the 73 annual. That's 50 years old now. So any 50-year-old book is going to have picked up some sort of wear in that time, isn't it? Wear and tear. But like all these things, if you're collecting a series, patience is very much a virtue. And nice copies of all these books are out there if you're willing to wait a little bit of time for a nice one to come along. Lovely. Right, got one more here to do. So this is the last one today. It's in 1974. I remember this was one of the tougher ones to get hold of. In nice condition, that was. Look at the artwork inside. Not great, is it? This is a little bit of the laminations coming off, but nothing too severe, but it is coming off a little bit. So yes, I hope you've enjoyed the slightly shorter video this time round. But another nice little batch of large format books to be done, and that pretty much clears, I think, the shelf that I was working on. And this is the fourth batch of these that we've now gone through, so we're definitely making some good progress, which is good news. We've still got lots more large format books to come in the future. So there we are. Thanks for watching today. Hope you've enjoyed this brief little tour through some more large format books. I shall look forward to seeing you again next week for another vintage book cleaning video. Thanks for watching today, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.